So we've already covered two definitions this morning. We've looked at discrimination and we've also looked at sexual harassment. There's one more definition we need to have a look at, and that is bullying. The important thing to be aware of with bullying is that unlike discrimination and harassment, which fits under our equal opportunity legislation, bullying does not. Bullying is hidden within the occupational safety and health legislation. And I say hidden because you won't actually find the definition of bullying in that piece of legislation. You won't actually even find it in the regulations. You have to go to the code of practice before you get this definition that we're going to have a look at this morning. The important distinction to make with bullying as separate from harassment and discrimination, where in fact you only need one incident to have occurred in order for someone to be able to make a successful claim, is that for bullying the behaviour has to be repeated. The courts don't care though whether or not the behaviour is the same sort of behaviour that's occurring over and over again, or it's different sorts of behaviours occurring over a period of time. What they're really looking at is that there's a pattern of behaviour that's occurring. The second part of the definition is that it must be inappropriate or unreasonable behaviour. Of course, that begs the question, what is inappropriate? So I was having a look at the legal definition, and the legal definition says that inappropriate is that which is not appropriate. It's not very helpful, is it? So I have a belief that most people in the workplace have a pretty good idea of what's considered appropriate and inappropriate behaviour of the workplace. So let's see now if that belief is upheld with you today. So there's two envelopes that I'm about to give you in your groups, the same groups that you were in before. And what you'll find is that in one of the envelopes, inappropriate, there's a whole lot of pieces of paper in here. I want you to take them out. And on those pieces of paper are written different behaviours or things that might occur in the workplace. In your groups, I want you to read them out and make a very quick decision about whether you think that behaviour is inappropriate or appropriate for your workplace. Now, I don't want any big philosophical discussions going on, so you're literally going to read it and go yes, no, until you've gone through all your envelopes. Does that make sense? Great, so we'll give out over there, this group over here, and then come around the three over here. So take those envelopes, and Peter, perhaps you can come here and have a read of them and then make a decision. Okay. So let's have a look at how you've gone with putting the things in the different categories. So I'm just going to put them up here. So what I can see is that you've all identified that there's 4 behaviours that are generally considered to be appropriate in the workplace. By implication, that means that you've put all the rest in the inappropriate. And the 4 behaviours that you've identified as being appropriate are in fact the ones that are generally considered to be appropriate. So that tells me that you have a very good idea of what's actually appropriate behaviour and inappropriate behaviour in the workplace. The third part of the definition is really the hardest part to be able to apply when you look at it. So if someone is engaging in repeated inappropriate behaviour, there also needs to be a risk of mental or physical harm to that person in order for it to be bullying. And that's why it comes under the OSH legislation, because OSH is all about providing a safe workplace. And bullying is considered to be an unsafe work practice. Unfortunately, the problem with this definition is this. If someone is engaging in repeated inappropriate behaviour, how are they going to know that it's causing a risk of mental harm to somebody? You see, we've got a pretty good idea about physical harm. We've got a pretty good radar around physical. But generally, we don't know what's happening in somebody's head. And what we do know, that if someone who's doing something that's inappropriate to someone else, there's a good chance they won't tell them. So if you have someone, they come to work every day, and when they come to work, they're greeted with morning dickhead, and then they come back the next day and they get another morning dickhead on arrival. They're probably not going to tell that person if that's causing them mental harm. And so we often won't find out that it's causing someone mental harm until it's too late. Right? When they've exploded, when they've suddenly resigned and said, I've had enough, I've put up with this for too long. So here's the risk with the definition. So this is what I say to people from a risk management perspective. When you have a look at this definition, I'm going to give you a more conservative view of the definition. This is what it looks like. If someone is engaging in repeated inappropriate behaviour in the workplace, then assume that it's causing risk of mental harm to that person. Assume, and then modify the behaviour accordingly. So that now completes our definition of bullying. Before we move on to have a look at how to manage a complaint in the workplace, does anybody have any questions?